Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. This is our recommend or refute episode. I am your host, John Garcia, and I'm going to be transparent here. I'm a little drunk. But that's usually how we do this anyway, so fuck it. It's not like anything's different.
John has recently been employed by the evil corporate entity that also employs me, and we came here straight from a company happy hour.
That is correct. And we've been coasting this whole time, or should I say I've been coasting. I don't know if Dixon has. He drove me here, so I should hope not.
I didn't go quite as hard as the happy hour because I knew I had to drive.
We had to meet a budget requirement, okay?
Yeah.
And I had to be a certain level of drunk.
That is true. We did not meet our minimum.
So here we are about to share with you our thoughts after we've all watched something, and a recommend or refute will follow those thoughts. Well, to kick us off, give us a little grounded thing. I know. First of all, we have our usual suspects. You've heard Dixon here. You've heard Ryan.
What's
here,
up?
As me, your host, John Garcia. Ryan is also here. Ryan King.
Disappointed that no matter how many margaritas or beers you have, you still say recommend or refute correctly.
Yeah, that's right. It'll never leave you. And I am, of course, John Dixon, Dixon's grandfather, come back from the dead.
Wow. This is surreal.
Yeah, it's really, ask me any questions you want to, grandson. I'll tell you anything.
Where have you been for the last 10 years?
Burying gold. Burying gold in the same patch that they found in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Europe, then.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm not going to tell you any other questions. That was your one, and that was a monkey paw's wish. So you'll find out what the negative benefits were of answering that.
Cool.
But anyways, our other co-host, Michael Dixon, is here.
Still here. Yep.
All right. Well, let's fucking get off to it then. Dixon, what did you watch, and are you recommending or refuting it? What the fuck's happening?
Yes, I watched a 1972 Western called Buck and the Preacher.
You people from Louisiana, ain't you? You don't belong out here. You couldn't last the winter. You ain't got no place to live. Where's Buck?
You're preaching.
That's right, brother. I'm preaching.
What you doing out here?
Spreading the word of the gospel.
We want this Buck.
Is that his name, Buck?
I'm Buck.
I got a wagon train coming through. I want them to get through safe to the west bank of the Pecos.
There's a whole way of life back there that's going down the drain.
If it was me, I'd look for money where money's kept. Like in a bank.
This was Sidney Poitier's directorial debut, starring Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte. It is a black Western that is kind of taking the genre and kind of reclaiming it for Black Americans. A lot of the history of the West was, African Americans were heavily involved in that story, and then Hollywood proceeded to kind of write them out of it as they were making movies about the West.
What are you talking about?
I know.
Sorry,
Shocking.
Let me rephrase that. What are you talking about, Pilgrim?
Speaking of John Wayne, the Searchers, the character that John Wayne played in that movie apparently was actually based on a black man, and they wrote it differently for the film. And so there are a lot of historic black cowboys who had a big impact on the West and were just kind of written out of the history in, a lot of it in Hollywood, some in the historical recounting of it. So this movie is kind of one of the first efforts in Hollywood to kind of retell those stories in a different light. Sidney Poitier plays Buck, who is a former Union soldier who works as a wagon driver that is helping to guide groups of Black Americans out of the South into the West. So after slavery, a lot of Black Americans in the South are trying to get out of that toxic environment, find land in the West, and start anew. Buck's job is to help guide them to new territory, help, negotiate peace with the Indians to get safe passage across certain areas. Meanwhile, there are groups of white Americans who are employed by Southern companies to be bounty hunters and to kill and maim and scare Black Americans moving westward to go back to the South. So there's this evil band of bounty hunters that is going after all the groups that Buck is helping move westward, and they realize that he is kind of the reason they're able to make it west, so they make it a point to try to find him and kill him. As Buck is fleeing from these people, he runs into the preacher, played by Harry Belafonte, who is a con man preacher who carries around a Bible and talks, big preacher talk, but his Bible has the pages hollowed out and has a revolver inside.
Of course it does.
Nice.
And he's kind of out for himself, wanting to make a buck, just survive. And runs into Buck, who has this mission in mind that he needs to kind of devote his life to helping these people survive and to make a new life for themselves in the West. So they kind of have very different goals, but they have similar enemies and end up kind of being grouped together as they are, kind of both trying to just survive in the West in America. I thought this movie was really good. Poitier, I think, I like him a lot in some roles. In other roles, I feel like he can be a bit overly restrained and, kind of, I do sometimes find myself bored with his performances, but I think he's very good in this. Harry Belafonte is great as the preacher. He was at the time known as this sex symbol, this singer who did some acting and, thought of as this very handsome man. He dirtied his teeth. He has these brown teeth in the movie that are just so gross. And he has this this longer hair and these ratty clothes. And he's really leaning into kind of this ugly con man persona, but that has charisma enough to, kind of get what he wants as he's moving along through life. Poitier and Belafonte actually originally came across the script and wanted to produce the film and reached out to Poitier. They were friends growing up and kind of came up through the same acting training. And actually, Belafonte was the lead in a play and, when they were younger, and there was a lot of hype around his performance. And so a bunch of critics came to see the show. Turns out he couldn't perform and Poitier was the stand-in and performed instead. And all of the critics thought that he was just the lead that had come there to see, and then he ends up getting this, fast train to fame and Hollywood, and Belafonte ends up taking a different path, mostly through music, and still does some acting. But they were both heavily involved in the civil rights era, and were working alongside Martin Luther King. And when King was assassinated, they kind of had different ideas about how to move the movement forward, and they had a bit of a falling out and didn't speak to each other for a while, for a couple of years. And then Belafonte came across the script and he was like, oh, Sidney would be perfect to do this with me, and reached out to him, and that kind of rekindled their friendship and allowed them to come back together and start kind of working together again. So it's an interesting story about them as people too, kind of coming into this movie and where they had been throughout their lives in entertainment and civil rights and other things. They both produced it and starred in it, and they had originally hired a white director to make the movie. And a few days into the shooting, they realized that they weren't getting what they needed out of him, and he wasn't providing the proper tone for the film. They both didn't really have anything bad to say about him, but they were like, look, we just realized that this needed to be directed by a black person. We need to tell this story in the correct way. So they fired the director, and Poitier took over the direction shortly into production. Columbia was the studio and kind of begrudgingly let Poitier do it while they were looking for a more permanent replacement, and ended up that Poitier was just doing well enough where they just let him go with it. And they're like, all right, I guess we'll save some money and just let him do it rather than having
Wow.
hiring another white director to come in here.
Columbia.
Yeah. Really, real allies over there at Columbia.
100 years of Columbia.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw 100 years.
100 years, Rick and Morty.
Such a
100 years.
prestigious brand.
But yeah, it's such an interesting movie that just kind of reframes the West and brings characters into it that you don't normally see in these types of movies. It's really well done. There are some great action sequences, great riding sequences. They're all very competently directed by Poitier, in a first-time job that he didn't even really get to prep for, right? He's kind of thrown into it, but he did a great job of bringing that story to screen. There's also an interesting dynamic with the Native Americans where, most Western movies kind of treat them as subhuman savages that are kind of getting in the way of the story of the white colonizers. And there's a kinship between, the black people moving west and the Native Americans. They have both been, wronged horribly by white Americans and are, kind of trying to figure out how to live their lives in post-Civil War society and how to make that work. And, they are skeptical of each other, yet kind of understand where each comes from. And, they're like willing to help each other out, but only to the degree that it doesn't compromise their own ability to, kind of make a life for themselves. And it's interesting to see that dynamic play out where you just have Black Americans and Native Americans talking to each other and trying to figure out how to, deal with the white bounty hunters and all this stuff around them without the presence of the white people there to kind of dictate the terms of the conversation. So I thought that was really interesting. This, kind of was at the, coming off the heels of Shaft as the blaxploitation era is kind of picking up. But this is a movie that is made exclusively by black filmmakers, telling a black story that I thought was really interesting. And, similar to Shaft, it's directed by a black man as well, kind of led to the start of the blaxploitation era and a lot of movies that are made very cynically by white filmmakers that are kind of working to exploit these things. But I thought Buck and the Preacher was really good. I watched the Criterion Blu-ray, and the special features had a lot of interviews with Poitier and Belafonte, and I thought they were fascinating, how they were talking about, how they had persevered through Hollywood and, despite all of the racism in the industry, as well as kind of how they thought about civil rights and their approach moving forward. There are a lot of, kind of more radical, younger people in that era that thought Poitier and Belafonte were, kind of not strong enough in their stances on civil rights and a bit more, kind of willing to work with people and things like that. And they were like, we don't really view that at all. Like, we were trying to do what we could. Poitier was one of the first black actors to really have that representation at the level where he was getting lead roles and stuff that had never really happened in Hollywood history. And so, it's like different ways of leading to better situations for black artists in the industry, right? Whether it's, proving that you can actually do that and have a lead role and getting there, or, picketing outside of a studio. It's a different type of thing you're trying to accomplish. And Poitier and Belafonte were kind of trying to make change within the system. And Buck and the Preacher feels like, it was the first thing that, I believe it was the first movie that Poitier made after King's assassination. And he was, it felt like he was kind of more wanting to make a stance in the art he was making and really fight for civil rights and what he believed in. But, I think both of those guys are really great in the film and very impressive in their interviews when talking about their experience with the movie. So really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend anybody check it out. If you like Westerns, it's great. If you're interested in, Hollywood history and, kind of how, the civil rights movement affected black representation in Hollywood, I think it's a really fascinating piece from that standpoint as well.
It's interesting that you have that oppositional perspective that no matter what progress is made, it's never enough progress, because obviously you can kind of take that away from things where you're like, well, even though the whole blaxploitation genre is born off the fact that a lot of white people wanted to exploit the desire to see more black stories and black crusades and like anything else that could be narratively reduced into dollar signs in Hollywood. And that's like the entire blaxploitation genre. And you would have directors like this that are criticized for not taking it far enough in an era where you couldn't. And then when you get to like the 80s and 90s and you have the boom of like homemade videos, that the conversation shifts to, well, yeah, you're doing it there, but it's not in like big Hollywood anymore. Like that there would be nitpicks now over how you're doing story and whether it's being done at like a class scale that it should be done and how it's understood. And so it's kind of fascinating to hear that there was still that critique even then of, Poitier is not doing nearly enough, when Poitier is the guy who he has the slap heard around the world. He did fucking In the Heat of the Night. He got away with that when it was early enough into the black experience in cinema and how black empowerment could become something greater than just you're a butler in the background kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by Buck and the Preacher. Very interested to check that out. Did you see any ripples into time that led to, we've talked about Boss before, anything that led to that? Or
I imagine that Boss would not have happened if Buck and the Preacher hadn't happened, but there's definitely some, inspiration that was taken there, but Boss is kind of doofy, and it's fun. It's more in the vibe of a Shaft set in the West rather than like Buck and the Preacher is trying to be a serious movie. It's trying to be entertaining, but it's trying to convey a message and have something interesting to say. And I think Boss is more like, let's take all the anger that you feel and channel it through this movie and have Fred Williamson beat up on some idiot white guys.
Of course.
And
it's an
there's
empowerment
plenty of value in that. Like, I understand why people are into that thing. I like Boss as a movie. But I think Buck and the Preacher is like a little bit more well-crafted cinema than Boss is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, having the anti-Western kind of be the response to like the idealized Western, right? That more of those came out, but they still are like a white guy showing that the West was more shitty than the Westerns make it,
right?
But not really like explaining that the West, most of it was around the Civil War, Victorian area, and like what the fuck was really going on and what was supposed to be opportunity, but was wild, but it was filled with tons of different people. And in some cases, like it was a place where you could make it, where you couldn't in the rest of America, based on your, gender or race or status or whatever. But almost because you had to fight more for it.
Yeah, or there's like less infrastructure to enforce existing norms, but it's still hard to carve out that path for yourself and fight for everything that you have.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking it's interesting. I've been reading Lies My Teacher Told Me, and it's a good chunk of things I somewhat knew already, but there's always little bits that you just pick up where you're like, okay, that kind of just adds a little bit more to the picture that you didn't know. And yeah, that sort of Reconstruction era where you're like, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't make slavery illegal everywhere.
Yeah,
no.
Which is weird. It was weird to think about the way
just
it's,
where it was
portrayed.
Already illegal,
just where it needed to be illegal to make the statement.
Yeah. And then the way Western expansion continued and the resentment that still stayed, and it's not like it fixed racism, but it's a time it's like most of the movies you go see look at the Civil War in a good light or the West in a good light, right? And then if they do show you, it's more of like, oh, look how bloody the Civil War was, and look at all of the, the criminals in the Wild West.
Speaking of being disappointed in the American system and Hollywood by extension, Ryan, I hear you've got something. that you want to bring to the recommended?
Yeah. As I promised, I did watch Madam Web, and I did watch Madam Web before I watched The Iron Claw.
A week ago, I spent my life racing against time,
I'm gonna help you out today, okay?
trying to save people who were running out of it.
Jesse!
Until one moment changed everything.
That man's trying to kill you.
Come on!
Welcome back to the land of the living.
I don't understand what's happening.
I've been having visions.
So who is he?
Ezekiel Sims. He was in the Amazon with my mom when she was researching spiders right before she died. I think I'm seeing the future. I think he can see into the future.
He's trying to change what happens. Julia, get down!
If you want to live, you have to trust me.
Get ready.
I love that you have to preface that just so that we know to be disappointed.
Which I think I also probably promised. I'll have to go back to the tape and see what I said. I did not watch it on a plane. I did watch it with my family. It was their choice, I swear. Here's the tape recording of them telling you it's okay. It was their choice.
It was just one of those things, you know, purely an accident. My husband had been drinking, and so he wasn't exactly in the greatest mood that night. And, well...
They're good. They're safe. It's fine. No, actually, they did point out that they were looking for something to watch and said, like, hey, we're going to watch Madam Web. Do you want to watch? And I, threw down whatever I had in my hands and ran downstairs to watch it.
Of course he did.
Yeah, I'm not going to dig into the particulars of the movie. Instead, I made the decision to create a frequently asked questions section for Sony to put on their Madam Web website. So when you're finished watching Madam Web and you're like, the fuck did I just watch? And you go to the website, they can answer that for you.
Sure.
Because I feel like this had the Rankin Bass syndrome where it tries to answer things, but just introduces a new plot hole that then it's not concerned with, because that wasn't a question. That was an answer to something else. Why are you concerned now? So I will shoot through this. You try to keep me on the clock here.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Why does Madam Web's vision power trump Ezekiel Sims' vision powers? I mean, why doesn't he see what's going to happen to him that she's going to do?
Okay. We need to stop right now and explain the premise real quick of Madam Web.
Yeah.
Which is that Madam Web,
see in the future.
Yeah, so Madam Web
is this a next scenario?
Yes, it's next.
Yeah, actually,
my
it is
God.
a lot like
Absolutely next. So,
No.
so imagine if you were not even next, but imagine if you were watching Robert Downey Jr. Because I also watched this too. Full disclosure for everybody out there: when Ryan said he was watching it, I knew he had to suffer in solidarity. Like I had to be there somehow with him. Because we were both going to ask questions. Dakota Johnson plays a character named Cassandra Webb, who is Madam Web.
That's
obviously.
a superhero thing.
Yeah, it doesn't fucking matter. She can see forward into time. Think about when Robert Downey Jr. was a Sherlock and he could calculate how he would kick somebody's ass.
Yeah.
But if he had to watch himself get his ass kicked 5 times before he actually realized how to not get his ass kicked.
So it's next.
It's next.
So
it's basically
Oh my God.
next with Nicolas Cage. And it makes you watch every sequence 5 times over and then it's done. And there's Tahar Rahim, who plays Ezekiel Sims, is the villain, who his whole motivation is that he has to kill 3 teenage girls because someday they'll become 3 college-age girls who will kill him for no fucking reason that I can discern other than they stole my spider, which he's like a knockoff Javier Bardem from No Country for Old Men. So anytime he talks, he's always like, somebody took my spider. I don't know who it was. It was probably
to
these
find out where they
girls. I
went.
have to kill them. They took my spider. And you're just like, why? Why do you care about the spider so much? Why are you so aroused by spiders? I don't fucking get it. Anyways, that's the whole premise, is Madam Web stopping him from stopping somebody from taking his spiders.
And basically, her mom got shot and a spider somehow helped question mark, and the mom was pregnant at the
quote
time.
the movie,
Oh my God.
her mom, he was with her mom in the Amazon when she was studying spiders and was killed. And that's the entire impetus for her.
That's pretty much.
This sounds like the
that's where
Cruella plot motivation of like my mom was murdered by Dalmatians
Yes.
and therefore I want to make coats out
Yes.
of them.
and
now.
therefore I have next powers. I want to make
Yes.
coats out of spiders. Yes, that's exactly it.
exactly. You got
Anyways,
it.
go
Yes.
on with your frequently asked questions, Ryan.
So Webb and Sims both have next powers because
Yes.
spiders.
Wait, was she
Yeah.
bitten by a spider to get these
No,
future powers?
she was in the womb when her mom was bitten by
Mom
the
was bitten
spider,
by a
so she
spider.
got the
Oh.
powers because she was
Yeah.
born from
fetus
the
spider powers.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So then you get to, okay, if they both have this coming from the spider, why does Madam Web see what Sims can't? Like hers is so much stronger. I think the movie would give you like this is why she beats him. It's just something about her being born, I guess, that makes a difference. Yeah,
The
that their
potency
mom
of the
got bit and
stem
Was
she
cells.
didn't
he
get sick.
created in
Yeah.
a lab or something? What?
Yeah,
no,
I guess.
he was just Javier Bardem, but he was
Yeah.
bitten by a spider.
He decides to dress up. Why does Ezekiel Sims look like Spider-Man when he dresses up, even though
dresses like
Spider-Man doesn't
but he's
exist yet?
Black
Yeah.
costume Spider-Man. I don't know why. I
Like
said it that way.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like that. But there's a simple answer. He looks like it because those spider people in Peru that are with the spiders look like it. Simple answer.
There are Peruvian spider people, Dixon, that wear they wear like it looks like web
Like a
clothing without
shitty-
any actual mesh around it. So it's just like wearing a net all over your body.
Oh.
Yeah.
It looks like a kink, and they crawl
Yeah.
down from the trees to save people. But only
And
after those
I-
people are dying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they'll make them get bit by a spider.
By for some reason.
Yeah, fuck it.
It's never. Yeah. Where did they come from? How does their society work?
Where did they
Do
go?
their
Where did
powers
they come
from the
from?
spiders?
Not
Yeah,
my
where
show.
did they come-
I thought the exact
Not
same
important.
thing.
Okay, so they crawl around like crazy, right?
Yeah.
So Ezekiel Sims, why can he crawl around, but Madam Web can't crawl around?
Yeah, they even have a whole scene where Madam Web tries to crawl on a wall and she falls
And it doesn't
awkwardly to the
happen.
ground and it doesn't do anything. And they play it for
Mm.
yucks. And then her cat stares at her and she's like, "Don't judge me." Oh,
Yeah.
there's that whole scene where Dakota Johnson feeds a cat and she goes, "Us strays got to stick together." And it does it in a
Oh.
dramatic way, like it should matter.
Yeah, which so since her mom died and her dad is comic book written off, we never know. Her mom dies in the Amazon and she has to go into the foster system. And in a fridge moment today, my son Logan goes, "How the fuck did the baby get back from Peru to New York to go into the American foster care system?"
Yes, exactly. How did it get put into the American foster care system and ended up in New York? I don't know.
Not important.
And I don't care.
Not important. So Ezekiel can climb on walls, I guess, because Madam Web was born and you don't get that power through birth. I don't know.
Sure.
If Ezekiel Sims sees that these girls are going to get powers and kill him, why isn't that what happens? Well, they
the
did
bad
kind of kill
guy-
him.
The bad guy's like, "Hey, these three women, when they're college age, they get spider powers, and they all have spider suits too that are different and cool."
Yeah, they're all some
And
they're all
they-
some Spider-Verse variation of a spider.
which we
woman
learn
or
about
girl.
when he sleeps with an NSA agent, which we also don't fucking know for the
Anything,
entirety
yeah.
of that sequence. He goes to an opera with this woman. He fucking like rails her, we assume, because she's very tired after they've had sex. And then he sits there dreaming about how he's going to be murdered. And then he wakes up and he's like, "I had a dream that I was murdered and I just can't understand why they kill me." And she's like, "Oh, that's crazy. You're fucking insane." And then he goes, "Yeah, I heard," and it takes place in 2003. He goes, "I heard the NSA is working on something crazy that could help me find these girls." And she freaks out and then he tortures her until she gives him the codes to her
To
NSA
hack
password.
into the NSA
And only
system.
after all of that happens, he doesn't say anything about the NSA, really. He just says like some new technology has been developed. Only after she's dead do we get a camera shot of her badge for the NSA office, I guess.
Right.
I don't fucking know. Sasha was like,
There's
"What the fuck? She works for the NSA?" And it was like,
Yeah.
that was like an 8-minute scene that has no context.
So there's the implication that he can see into the future and knows that she's an NSA agent, and that if he goes to this opera and he says these particular things and does that, he can get her to come back. But then it's like, but then he can't see other stuff in the future, like just plot contrived stuff that's important to move.
The only thing he sees in the future is that his spider was stolen, and he just goes, "My spider was stolen," and that's like actual dialogue. He's just like,
absolutely,
I can't believe my spider was stolen. Who stole it? And
right. And so John,
lucky spider.
he saw into the future so that he could steal this NSA technology to track down people, but he didn't know he was needing to track down girls yet that were going to kill him.
Well,
because he knew that after he had stolen the NSA, and then that's
vision that he had was about girls, and he uses the NSA's technology to synthesize their exact actor profile shots into a frame, but which he also
from
has
his descriptions of his dream of them older.
Yes, to a goon. To a goon that he has that is given more screen time than he is, like without the Spider-Man mask. She's in like so many scenes, and we don't know her name or her relation to him.
Why she's there?
She's literally just there to be like, "Hey, Javier Bardem, you're this is what these teenage girls look like. They look like Sydney Sweeney and Isabella Merced and Celeste O'Connor, and that's all you get." And he goes, "All right, I think I can find them. They're probably at a diner or at a Subway." Not the food place, an actual Subway, like a public transit station.
Thank God.
Yeah, we don't need that.
No product placement.
Yeah, Ad Astra was enough. Okay. They're on the moon. Anyways, go on with your FAQ, right, Ryan.
So we vaguely self-fulfilling prophecy, maybe. I don't know. We didn't really think about it. Sure. If at any time he had just gone, "This is shitty that they're trying to kill me," and then didn't, then he never would have been killed by them.
Yep.
So the only reason they killed him is because he dreamt that they were going to kill him, but they didn't kill him the way that.
It's a great.
Anyway, that's a good question.
Thing.
Next,
sure.
how does he use the spider he stole in Peru?
He gets bit by
just crawls on his hand.
That's all he needs.
No, it just crawls.
It
crawls around his hand.
Best friends with it, and the rest of the movie, he just fucks with his spider. It's on his hands, crawling around, and it never gives a shit about him. It doesn't try to hunt anything. It doesn't try to bite him. It doesn't try to bite anybody else. He just has fun with it. It's a good time. It's like in a fish tank, and they have a whole dramatic scene set up too. Yeah. It's in the center of his office, and they have a whole scene to establish that it's there. And then they do nothing with any of that. Nobody gets thrown through that window and gets bitten by it. None of that shit. As far as Marvel movies go, Ryan, I wonder if you agree with this. It feels like a bunch of executives in the early 2000s who had access to the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider script got coked up and accidentally slept in a time machine. And then they came forward in time and made this movie, thinking that it was going to be released the same time as Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and that it would go gangbusters.
Okay. I have a question about that.
Okay.
Here's all my fact. Why is the movie set in 2003, even though it feels like this is supposed to be setting up Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man, and that came out in 2002?
That's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I think they just didn't want to use cell phones.
They didn't.
He's just like, we don't want to use cell phones, and he's tracking the girls. Like,
I heard it was a rights issue. Like they wanted to tie it to a Spider-Man, and the Tobey Maguire one was the only one they had the rights to, or something.
Yeah, that's probably right.
But then don't.
They didn't put it in 2000.
They forgot to do that part.
Yeah. They also have Nokia phones.
There were cell phones in 2003. Yeah.
Well, but like
one of the characters
smartphones.
Yeah, one of the characters in the movie is like, "You have a cell phone? Oh my god!" Like it's the biggest status symbol ever, and that's the whole thing they make out of it.
Yeah, and also Britney Spears probably gonna be something hot, John. That's what they told me.
Oh yeah, they play "Toxic" by Britney Spears like it's not gonna be a big jam or some shit. Oh,
yeah. Okay. We can put all this aside if we have a cool villain, though, right, John?
Yeah,
like that's always the thing. We have a cool villain.
Right?
Marvel movies always do.
What was his origin story? Like, why did he become evil?
You just don't understand, Ryan, because he had a poor upbringing. When he held Madam Web's mom at gunpoint, he said, "You never suffered like I did. You never understood." And they never show any of his backstory, but you know it because of the way he says it. It's ADR'd over his mouth.
Right.
He's completely dubbed the
ADR
entire movie
shittily over his mouth.
Anytime he's in frame, they have him profile shot, but from the back only.
Like 3/4 head shot.
They never show him talking. They clearly just dub him the entire way through.
Wow. Was it Javier Bardem dubbing him?
It might as well have been. I think at one point he said Lisan Al-Ghaib or some shit.
So they just rewrote all of his dialogue and had him redo it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's fucking wild.
Okay, so he wanted to make money because he had been bored as a kid, but they were coming to Peru, John, to get the spider to go back to make medicine from it and make money.
To save cancer. To cure cancer.
Save cancer.
Sorry. To save cancer. That's what capitalism does,
save
baby.
Cancer. Have you seen what big pharma CEOs' salaries are? He could. Yeah, so he could. They do have big salaries, and also they're evil the whole time too. So I guess that's what he could have just been. A big
Shkreli of Big Pharma, but he wasn't part of Big Pharma at all. He didn't give a shit about it. So yeah.
Okay. One of the key things about Marvel heroes is they turn away the powers or they abuse them, and then they become a hero, right?
Of course.
So great power, great responsibility. Am I right? What was her thing? We forgot about that.
She was a paramedic.
She just was a paramedic.
She was a paramedic who hated children, hated saving people's lives, tried to save Mike Epps' life, and then
Dixon's face it. She's a paramedic who hates saving.
Yeah, she hates saving lives, hates children, hates teenagers, doesn't want to be a hero for about an hour and 20 minutes of the film. Leaves everybody else in terrible, dire constraints, and then she leaves teenagers in the forest after she discovers that they're targeted by the bad guy, and she goes, "You just need to stay here. I'll be back in 3.5 hours. I'm going to leave." And she drives away, doesn't tell them where she's going, when she'll be back, why she'll be back. None of those things. The teenagers leave, and then she comes back and she's like, "You guys, I told you to stay in the forest. Why the fuck are you in this diner? I'm going to have to hit Spider-Man with a car." And then she does. That's basically her whole motivation is, I don't want to be a mom. I'm not a good person. I guess I'll save kids. And
then she proceeds to hate them and be annoyed by them the entire time until
the very end, the last 5 minutes. The last 5 minutes when she becomes wise and she's older and she's blind because her eyesight's totally fucked. I don't know why, but it is. So yeah, Dakota Johnson, by the way, in any scene that she's in, she's either drunk, high, or she has just hit a new rock bottom of not giving a fuck that I've never known existed.
You mean her personally or her character in the movie?
Her personally. Like, as an actor, I've never seen somebody phone it in quite as much as Dakota Johnson did.
Wow. I usually really like Dakota Johnson. So
no, I mean, I don't doubt that she's great in other things or whatever. But like when she shows up in this movie, she shows up to like a cookout one time and she's like, "He's grilling the burgers again. Are you pressing those burgers, Mike Epps?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And she's like, "Man, dude, that's fat that's in those burgers." And that's like her line.
That's
delivery.
the good part.
That's the good part. And then she just stops. She just doesn't. In any scene, she just does that delivery.
Wow.
There's one scene that's
good
great.
For her.
I'll clip it and post it in the Discord at some point. But she just like is getting in a cab and she goes, "Just don't do stupid stuff." And that's like how she says it. And then she gets in a cab. And I'm like, all right, fair enough. Anyways, Ryan, continue.
Okay, so then do the girls get their powers or like hints of getting their powers? Do we set that? No. Okay.
They don't do
that. Why didn't we do that? I think, have you ever watched that movie Split? I think we thought we were going to do
James
like
McAvoy.
that. Like it was like a surprise prequel kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we forgot, and we told you in all the posters and everything up front that this was a prequel and that they were going to get powers. But
they're going to do a sequel called Madam's Webs, and it's going to be all of them. Madam's Webs.
Okay. So now, John, I'm just realizing that these three girls like could have just been inanimate girls,
like a New Yorker. Goyles.
Yeah. So they never get their powers. Do they do anything to help stop the villain or have any relevancy to any of it? Or could they have just been an inanimate object that she had to save?
Well, they're really dumb, and Sydney Sweeney is treated like an object. So I suppose both.
Yeah. It could have just been Ving Rhames' briefcase and we'd have been fine.
Ving Rhames' briefcase. Oh my God. Yeah.
And
Is
then,
this a Mission
and then importantly,
Impossible movie?
It might as well have been. Except
they're
those
so
stunts were done
annoying.
by anybody.
They're so annoying when they get left with.
Ryan's going to do stand up now.
Yes. Yeah. Hold on. She just ups and goes to Peru, right, John?
Oh, fuck. I forgot about that. Holy shit.
So after she just up and left them in the forest, they come back and she takes them to her friend, and then she just ups and goes to Peru. Mind you, she's wanted by the police in an era we know NSA exists.
Mm-hmm.
And post 9/11.
And post 9/11. And we know the bad guy specifically can look at any fucking camera anywhere.
Oh, he's got the God's eye.
Yeah, he's got the God's eye.
Yeah, she's got the God's eye.
Yes, he's got the God's eye, and oh God, I forgot.
Yeah, we've seen that he just like figured out they were in a like a truck stop at one point. We later see he just sees them in a taxi. Like he can see them anywhere, but he loses track of Madame Web when
They've
she
got
flies
like
to Peru
NCIS
somehow.
enhanced technology, and he's just like, there they are. But yeah, she gets to go to Peru and talk to the spider people about how important her fucking life is or some
And
shit.
she can like astral project if she figures it out, and then they don't tell her how or why or what that's important or anything.
Yes.
And then so then because the girls are so annoying and they're left with her friend, do they cause Peter Parker to be born prematurely?
Yeah, they have a whole thing about Spider-Man being born prematurely too. They get to she goes to a baby shower and they've caused like there's a lot of like lead up to the Peter Parker character who's clearly in the womb, and they like fucking reference it so many times in the movie. But like if you don't really give a shit about Spider-Man, you won't know. And I didn't really care. And then they're like, yeah, they're just literally like, oh my God, this woman's going into labor. We need to put her in a cab with these 3 wanted women who are being hunted by NSA Spider-Man. And there it goes.
Because they're being hunted and he can see their face anywhere, right? And so we got to be real careful when we take them out because we couldn't possibly leave them alone at home. You know, normally they live with their parents and not alone at home, right, John?
Except they're all orphans.
Oh, all 3 of them are orphans who have been living by themselves for
Their
years
parents are all
and been
rich
just fine.
and hate them, and they leave them alone, and they're all just anything. Also, like one thing is everybody's backstory is expository, Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that they show up on screen, they just go, my dad beat me when I was a child and I know blah, 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 blah. And they just go through that and then they're done talking about how traumatic it was. They never show it. They don't do any of that to establish that. And they're just like, wow.
Does it have any relevancy to any of the plot?
No, other than that.
I guess they kind of are similar.
Emotionally vulnerable. The only fun scenes in this movie for me, well, I would say besides the fucking Dakota Johnson throwing the film, which is great. Was whenever Spider-Man shows up and he breaks people's necks, and it's just fucking absolutely over the top violent. Like slams Sydney Sweeney's head on a diner stool and breaks her neck.
Whoa.
And like some other
because we get to
shit.
see the future where he fucking destroys them right before like we go back a little bit and then he doesn't.
Yeah, and so they always reel that back. They're like, no, never mind. It doesn't fucking matter. None of this matters, and nobody sees Spider-Man, and nobody cares, and everybody dies, and people are fine with it. There was a car that got lit on fire and blown up, and everybody was just like, yay, Madame Web, she did it. She survived. And they did not grieve or mourn for the people that died.
My kids, honestly, that car exploded, and they're like, was someone in that car? Because it was like, they were in traffic.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And I was like, no, that one was parked on the side of the road.
That's what Sasha said it was parked. And I was like, in the middle of a 4-way intersection, it was parked. Nobody braked hard into that. And she was like, shut up.
Yeah. They then shock him off of the roof with the AED machine. So like,
don't even bring that into this.
Which I then began to get lost in the conversation with my family about the misuse of AEDs.
Back to your frequently asked questions, Ryan. Come on, man. We got to get through this.
I think we kind of have hit them. Honestly, like as much as we're dunking on it, John, I want your opinion. It was better than Mobius.
Yeah, I mean, Mobius,
it was better than Let There Be
Morbius?
Carnage.
Morbius, whatever the fuck it was. Mobius
sounds better than Morbius.
Jared Ledios. Letiosia. I don't know. Yeah, no, I would say because Morbius was like, everybody rode the irony train to like a re-release in theaters because that was the greatest troll of cinema that we've seen in the history of capitalism, where Sony thought it would be awesome to just re-release it, and then nobody went and saw it, and it fucking just like a huge hit to their wallet. And this time around, Madam Web was so hated by the cast that's in it, except for the 3 girls who give the worst performance. They're just Sydney Sweeney and Celeste O'Connor and whoever else was in it. I'm sorry that I'm forgetting her name, but she
probably appreciates you forgetting her name.
Honestly, yeah. Well, it's just one of those things.
They pretty much come in and are like, here's your stereotype outfit. Here's your stereotype outfit.
You're all orphans. And the worst thing about orphans is that they don't have parents. That's how they sell it. And that was like, the best part of the movie is Dakota Johnson throwing everything because it's interesting. It's genuinely interesting to watch. I've talked about how I like The Matrix 4 because it burns the house the Matrix built. And I really enjoy watching an artist just set fire to something. And Dakota Johnson has that same energy of just like, I'm going to show up in any scene and I'm going to fucking deliver my lines as flatly as possible and just fucking ruin this movie. And it's so great.
Like real Marshawn Lynch energy. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's great. And I remember the press tour where she talked about how
if you pair it with the press tour.
The press tour. And then at the end of the press tour, when she got let off the leash, she was just like, fuck that movie and fuck everything that it was. And you could tell through all of it. But you see like interviews with Sydney Sweeney where she's just like, oh, it was great. Like it was excellent. I loved having the opportunity to do it. It was just fantastic. Sasha, halfway through this movie, was like, I thought Sydney Sweeney was okay before. I was neutral on her and I had nothing against her. And I never want to see her act again. Like by the end of the movie, Sasha was like anti Sydney Sweeney. And I was like, all right, Sasha, let's not go that far. She's still early in her career. She's getting a law degree. Maybe she'll do some civil work. It might be good for humanity.
She hasn't made enough money yet to tell the studio to go fuck themselves.
Exactly. Like let her get a little space here to do what she needs to do, and then we'll see. But everything I've seen Sydney Sweeney in so far, I'm just like, nah, I don't think so. Not right now. We'll see if she does anything, good.
She's really, really bad in Anyone But You. That movie is terrible.
Did you watch that movie? I forgot about that.
Watched that with my girlfriend. It was really bad.
Well, there you go. Did your girlfriend like it?
No.
Okay, good. I'm glad because I was just like, all right. That was Glenn Powell too, right?
Yeah.
Oof, Texas boy.
Really, really bad script. Nothing could be done. But
can't wait to see what Glenn Powell does with Twisters.
Yeah. He's in a Richard Linklater movie that's out right now called Hitman.
I want to see that.
Yeah, I do too.
He looks good.
But yes, I saw a couple of interviews with Dakota Johnson on the press tour, and she just looked like she was dead inside.
Yes.
Like she had just lost her will to live, her love of acting just gone from that experience with that movie. And like Dakota Johnson has, she did the 50 Shades trilogy. I never saw any of those, but she's done a lot of really great work in independent films since then. And it feels like she maybe just kind of forgot what it was like to make a studio movie, and then came off of all of these really fantastic indie performances, some movies that she was producing herself, and then goes into just getting a buck to make a big movie in the studio machine is like, oh my God, I forgot why I stopped doing this. Like this is just horrible and anti-art and just a terrible experience for all. So I did think it was fun to see her just kind of burning everything down and not giving a shit in the interviews. But I hope that doesn't compromise her ability to actually like produce and make her own things going forward.
I doubt she's going to be blackballed for this movie because it would be the dumbest.
I don't think enough people really saw it or gave a shit.
It would be the dumbest thing if Hollywood blackballed her for Madam Web, because honestly, that would just make fucking Sony look stupid.
Hollywood is not a rational enterprise.
It's true.
And if you piss off the wrong executive, that's enough to blackball you. So.
Yeah, true. That's also
I do wonder though, like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, well, if you read the script, it probably was fine. But by the time they started getting to it and editing it, and the studio came in and kept changing things, it turned into a different movie. But I'm like, I don't think there could have been a movie script anywhere underneath this that looked if I was Dakota Johnson, I would look at and go, okay, let's make this happen.
Yeah.
Like the core beats suck. The core beats of just like
sucks.
Your mom died, spider bite, maybe, and now you can see the future, and you have to save these kids.
Now you're
that
next.
You don't like, and then you at the end of the movie, you're in a state that doesn't make you a good marketable second superhero movie. So we're going to give it to these other people that don't do anything in this film while you're there. I mean, you could just read the script and be like, this makes no sense. I'm not going to get anything out of this.
Yeah, exactly. So Adam Scott gives a performance in it as well.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Can we stop pretending that Adam Scott is good?
In Severance, he was good.
Was
in
he?
Other things, he's not.
He's so
fine.
boring to me in everything that he does.
Yeah,
Like, he plays the straight man
he's a
in
straight
everything
man. Yeah.
to, like, the point where I just know what I'm getting out of Adam Scott every
You
time.
know,
And it's the straight man to the point of boredom, not like the Jason Bateman
I was gonna say
Arrested Development thing where he can create some humor as he's playing off the people around him. Whenever I see Adam Scott in something, I'm like, great, I'm getting nothing out of that character.
I feel like they're very similar in what they can and can't play. But yeah, Jason Bateman does have more charm for me when I see him in things.
I think Adam Scott's like good in like little bites, so like Step Brothers or something, where you like just like he comes in, he makes a fucking joke and
he's not playing the boring straight man in Step Brothers. He's like playing a douchebag, right, in that movie.
And then the other performance I really like him for is in The Good Place, where he's one of like the asshole devils that like comes and fucks with everybody.
I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, and so I'm like, he's got these moments on that side when you let him be like funny and whatever. I agree. It's when you try to put him in something like normal role that it's like, why though?
Well, Ryan, it sounds like you're recommending Madam Web.
Yeah, if you just watch Morbius, you're like, oh my god, I need to burn my eyes out on something decent. It honestly is that like,
it's hilarious,
fair, poor. I think was that what I said? Poor. I would rate it like poor, not bad. Poor.
Madam Web seems like a good movie to get drunk and mock with your friends, and you can laugh at the line delivery and have a decent enough time.
It might be. Everyone like Morbius is this thing where people are trying to like pull out quotes and I think what Sony thought is that people were doing what you're saying, where they were going to go to it and they were going to yell the quotes back and laugh at the screen, but it's so fucking boring and stupid.
It's so middle of the road. That's what I thought Madam Web would be. I thought Madam Web would be middle of the road, but it was so bad. So abysmally bad and thrown that it was fun. Like when I watched it. I mean, Sasha said I'm not allowed to pick any other movies for like a week and a half since I watched it. But how did the family react?
I'll give you the test I gave my family afterwards. John, can you name one of the three girls' character's name?
Yeah, one of them was named Cornwall.
What?
Julia
Cornwall? Last name. Julia Cornwall. Okay.
Julia Cornwall.
Yes. That was the Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah. That's just because it's Sydney Sweeney, because she said it immediately. She was like, I'm Julia Cornwall and I have two parents. And I was like, who doesn't? What the fuck is that? The other one, I don't remember. The other one is Squeeze. Who the fuck was Zoops? I don't know who their name was.
Yeah. I think that's like, if you walk away having a hard time like thinking back on the character name, which is, we talked about wrestling earlier, but like wrestling in comic books, they repeat the names. They like, they make them stupid, like Cassandra Webb.
Yeah.
Right. And you're supposed to walk away remembering it. And they have the characters. These are characters that are in the comics. They pulled them whole hog and everything, that have an availability to be memorable if you fucking think to do it.
But they're
to
not.
Like say their names and use them and repeat it and like give them a character.
Wait, so Ryan, are you recommending or refuting this?
He keeps dancing around it.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally dancing around it. It's definitely better than the other Sony things that they.
That's not what I asked.
It's not quite Venom, I guess.
Yeah, get him in the corner,
Venom's
Dixon.
Probably more enjoyable.
Are you going to call a ceasefire, Ryan, or not? What are we talking about?
Recommend or refute it, Ryan?
It's poor. I think poor is probably a refute, right?
Sure.
You got to
Like,
decide
that's a
that for
below
yourself.
Say it yourself.
Are you recommending a bad
2
movie
stars.
or are you refuting a bad
2
movie?
stars. God damn it. He's refuting it, and I'm going to call this now.
John sounds like he's recommending it.
I
think I'm
am
refuting
recommending Madam Web, but that's not my choice.
It's yours. You brought this movie to this podcast, Ryan.
You put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
it. Yes.
He did.
I refute watching it, but I recommend that it's not as bad as it's supposed to be.
That doesn't make any sense, but you refute watching it, so I think that's what
Doesn't
we have
need
to
to
go with.
make sense, Dixon. It's provocative. It gets the people going. Now we'll move on to why I'm recommending Madam Web, because I have a refute for everybody at this table. It's a 2024 film that was just released. It's a new Jennifer Lopez vehicle. So strap in, baby. It's hard sci-fi, except it's not. Called Atlas.
Agent Atlas Shepard has spent years of her life hunting the artificial intelligence known as Harlan. Originally engineered to advance humanity, he instead nearly ended it.
If you really want to try to capture Harlan, you need me on that mission.
What do I do? Strap it! This planet is unstable and inhospitable.
Atlas, my name is Smith.
I don't need your help.
I don't trust any AI.
Atlas, this won't work if you don't trust me.
Let's do this.
Everything I know about it.
This is what it feels like to be you.
This is what it feels like to be us.
If we don't stop Harlan,
All life on Earth is doomed.
Everything I know about it.
Shit.
And this movie is God,
John, we
what
watched the
fuck
trailer,
is-
and my family decided to watch Madam Web.
That is exactly how you know what I got in for. So when I watched Madam Web out of solidarity with Ryan without telling him, because that's the kind of fucking like twisted I am now, I guess. I noticed Netflix had ranked Madam Web as the number 2 in the US on Netflix. And the number 1 I was really curious about. If Madam Web's number 2, God, what could be better than Madam Web? It was Atlas. Directed by Brad Payton and starring Jennifer Lopez, and also as the villain starring Simu Liu, who I actually did enjoy in Shang-Chi 10 Rings until it became a Marvel movie, towards the end when it was bullshit. But I was like, all right, I'm curious to see this. I started watching it at like 11 o'clock at night. And within like the first hour of it, I was like, I got to stop and resume it the next day because I got to go to bed for my new job. And I don't respect this film enough to finish it in one go.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is, considering what I've watched in the past. So Jennifer Lopez plays a character named Atlas Shepard. Just a terrible character name. And it was
her first name is Atlas.
Yes, her first name is Atlas.
Bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty good AI generated name. We're just sort of like stole from other things that were science fiction and put them together thinking it would make a valid name.
That's like John and I watched Fury Road a few days ago and I was like, wait a minute. Her mother named her Furiosa? No. They grew up in some happy green place and she was like, you know what? I'm going to name my precious little daughter Furiosa. I just know she just looks mad. She just looks mad.
I'm going to be mad as fuck when you're older.
Is that what Nick Fury says in Captain Marvel, though? It's like, what'd your mom call you? Fury. What would your kids call you? If I had them, Fury.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Dixon and I also watched Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, which we won't talk about, but had similar stupid naming conventions.
Mm-hmm.
And also Nick Fury.
Like Xander Cage.
Yeah, and a Nick Fury reference in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Atlas is the story of Jennifer Lopez trying to win back her career after she's made so many stumbles. And it really is a powerhouse performance, is what I would be saying if it was produced by A24 and starred anybody who wasn't Jennifer Lopez. She hates AI. AI killed her family. I always reference the trope.
Ryan is losing it.
I always refer to the trope when something killed my family. When like anybody hates, like, oh my god, this tire must have killed this whole family or some shit like that. When you're just saying something aggressive against an inanimate object, it killed all of your family is the trope. But Jennifer Lopez genuinely was like, nah, AI killed my whole family. Back before I was Jennifer Lopez, I was a little girl, and Simu Liu was the bicentennial man. And for whatever reason, he convinced my mom to kill herself, and then he tried to kill me. And they don't explain for
he's a cyborg or something.
He's just full a robot. He's a robot with AI in him or whatever the fuck. They just called him AIs. It doesn't matter.
He's a Terminator.
He's a Terminator. This movie's 120 minutes, by the way.
Oh,
so like fucking the first 60 minutes is dedicated to her being like, I hate all AI. And the last 60 minutes is her being like, well, AI is not bad if you can use it. It's like a boomer. It's like a boomer hating Facebook and smartphones because they track you until they realize you can share funny memes on them. And that sometimes you can see photos of your grandchildren. And they're like, no, it's actually okay. It's totally fine. So Simu Liu is a terrorist because, of course, he is made out of AI, and so they're like he's terroristic. And Atlas Shepard, Jennifer Lopez, has built the Spaceballs force field around the planet Earth that prevents AI from getting back into it. And they're like, you're the smartest AI scientist that we've ever had, and we need you to interrogate this one AI guy that we got the head of because he was a rogue AI who came back to Earth. And we tried to run a SWAT team on him, but he could see the SWAT team through the walls. So he killed everybody, except that we also anticipated they would kill everybody. So we put a bomb behind everybody that was in the SWAT team and it captured him. So it's fine now. It was like schoolyard logic of like, we have an anti fucking killing SWAT bomb that'll retaliate against you. She does this whole interview with him where she's holding a fucking Queen's piece from a chess set, and then she shoves it in his brain and it kills him, and then she extracts the knowledge of where Simu Liu is, and he's on like a moon of Jupiter or some shit. And they're like, we don't know anything about this moon, but we're gonna send a military force in. And we're going to leave you behind, Jennifer Lopez, even though you know everything about this guy. We're going to send everybody else in, and we know nothing about this planet, and we know nothing about this fucking terrorist. And we're going to try to have them kill him, and then bring him back for his CPU chip to figure out why he went rogue so that we can build better AI, even though we've already built AI that's being used against him. So, like, fuck me. This is already like the first 60 minutes, and we're off to that stupid shit show. Everybody lands and dies in like an Edge of Tomorrow-esque sequence that we never see because Jennifer Lopez gets thrown into a mech suit that she refuses to use because she's a boomer. And so she's just like, I'm never going to pair with this AI. You're never going to learn anything about me. I'll never do anything, and you'll never be able to save my life because I don't trust you, planet, and I'm asked to kill my phone, and I'm alone. And so she just sits in this like fucking for the rocks dirt patch, talking to AI about how she's not going to tell it whether she likes cake or pie. And then eventually she just goes, 60 minutes. I mean, I have 20 hours. The next 30 minutes in the latter half of that. Okay, I guess I'll just assimilate. And you love to see somehow this absolutely other people who have been trained in the military. I'm not going to tell you about my childhood. I'm not going to tell you about who I am. Just acting fuck I know out of her sequences, and she alone endure any holes, and she doesn't endure any where their brains were fucking splattered. None of that happens. Bodies she needs to do that, and it kind of just fucking happens. It's just like this movie makes so many questionable choices at every turn, more so than Madam Web did. And I don't remember why the villain is doing what he does until at the very end of the movie when he goes, They show a whole like 5 minutes of a sequence where they're playing chess together, and she's like, haha, I wish that I could play games in a better way with you. And he's like, well, you can if you assimilate by putting this little earpiece on you, and then we can sync our neural paths and I can feel what you feel. And then he sees climate change because they do that. And he sees like doves covered in like oil. And he's like seeing like volcanoes explode. And he has like a seizure. And then he just goes, humanity must be extinguished to prevent you from killing yourselves. I have to detonate a fucking ion bomb that'll ignite the atmosphere and kill everything beyond humanity on Earth to just save you from yourselves.
Reasonable.
And so his whole premise is to lure Jennifer Lopez to that planet so that he can steal the military vessel to get through her Spaceballs force field to detonate the bomb within Earth, and then to kill everybody. And then victory is his, but he's like not happy about it, but he is. And it just like, at the end of the movie, he just becomes dumb bad guy, where like they have a whole scene where they're both stranded on the planet together. And you would think that maybe they would be able to play chess, or they used to play chess when she was a child or some of that shit.
Like, something from the past would come in and be relevant.
His hand grows a fucking laser sword and it becomes a laser whip, and she merges with her mech suit and it tells her how to avoid the laser whip. And then it saves her from dying. Okay, this is the part, Ryan. This is the part I need you to listen to.
This is the part.
She has a necklace that gives her oxygen. There's no mask. It's just a necklace, and it gives her oxygen. She's low on oxygen. She has 30 seconds of oxygen left. But the mech suit has a fission reactor core, sure, that it's going to convert that entirely into oxygen and then wirelessly transmit it to her on the outside of the mech suit.
Wait, it's just like doing alchemy?
Yeah, it's just doing alchemy.
Right?
It's going to give her oxygen, just like NFC.
Like dismantling itself. And
yeah, it's gonna airdrop oxygen to her. and
pulling apart the protons and neutrons and electrons and
yes.
reassembling them into oxygen.
Yeah, and the funniest part to me was the whole movie. They were like, this thing is unhackable and impenetrable, and this AI is cutting edge. And then the moment they get into like the AI base, her mech suit is like, oh my God, I'm being hacked. Oh no. And then it just gets hacked and it's fucked. And there's a whole stupid fucking thing about that. Anyways, yeah, by the end of it, she has befriended this, much like in Interstellar, our favorite Chris Nolan film.
Oh no.
She's befriended the AI, which his name is Smith.
Come on,
and,
Smith.
She's like, Smith, you have to live. You got to make it, Smith. I care about you. I do like cake and pie. Believe me, Smith. And Smith is over there like, I finally understand what humor is. Ha 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 ha. Thank you for showing me the love of humanity. And then it fucking crashes. And she gets back to Earth and gets honorarily inducted into the military industrial complex. And she gets the newest version of that mech suit that has classic Smith in it. And she puts a little thing in and is like, Smith, I like cake and pie. And he's like, I know you like cake and pie because we're best friends. And that's how we knew each other back on this planet. And that's like how it ends, is this like emotional, like, we're going to go fuck shit up for the military.
America.
It was just a fucking stupid trip. And I hated every moment of it. And at the end of it, Sasha turned to me and said, you're not allowed to pick movies for a week and a half. You have to, you fucking need a cool down.
You're in timeout.
Yeah. Now I'm in timeout and I just can't. I can't with that fucking movie. It's so dumb.
That sounds really stupid. On the IMDb page, Sterling K. Brown is in this also.
Oh yeah.
How does he embarrass himself in this? Usually he's pretty good.
So Sterling K. Brown, when he showed up, I was like, Sterling K. Brown, what are you doing here? He is the other thing I would say. This is masking Jennifer Lopez. This entire movie is a vehicle to lash out at anybody who hates Jennifer Lopez because she's older now. And because they might think that she is incapable of acting.
I don't think anyone is accused.
Yeah,
her
and
of
so
that.
so
Does that
Sterling
have
K.
to
Brown's
be
whole
an
character.
action movie.
It does in this one because Sterling K. Brown's whole role is to be like, wow, you're such an angry woman who's hot-headed and makes terrible decisions because you're a woman. And she goes, no, I have a traumatic past, and it's completely valid that I would think that these are the decisions I need to make. And you don't understand me, Sterling K. Brown. And by the end of the movie, he's dying and has like his ribs cracked. And they're in this emotional scene where she's coming face to face. But by the way, like there's a horrific, the only like real practical effect that I was impressed by was I think they got like a prosthetic of Sterling K. Brown to pop his eyeball out of. Because there's like a really graphic torture scene where he has his whole eye fucking just popped out of his skull. And he's like beat up and bleeding and whatever else. And it's just graphic. But after that scene happens, she's laying next to him and he just goes, do you ever think somebody could look this good for having 5 ribs broken and being bleeding all over themselves? And I was just like, Sterling K. Brown, what are you fucking doing in this movie? Like, why are you doing this here? And then he sacrifices himself to save her by wielding a big gun and shooting explosives. And that's like it. That's pretty much all he ever fucking does in the movie. So yeah, not good. None of it was good. Simu Liu seemed like he was having fun being a villain. Again, with Chris Hemsworth and Furiosa recently, I just think people like to not be a hero anymore and want to be a villain, and they don't care if they're chewing scenery. It's just like fun for them. Good for them. Jennifer Lopez, terrible acting. Didn't buy any of it for a second. Like no emotional moments. Sterling K. Brown, why are you in this? And everybody else, I'm so sorry you had to be part of this movie. But goddamn.
I think you can play the villain or just sort of a side character in a really, really shitty movie and not get the flack for it. It's that the main face that gets all the flack. And Jennifer Lopez, like when I saw the trailer and it was Jennifer Lopez, like immediately afterwards, I was like, man, she just gets bad luck. I'm like, wow, how does she just pick these? Because it's just the things that you look at it and you're like, that just isn't for you, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, and also it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like something entertaining.
Yeah.
The like romance angle movies they put her in for a bit. No. Now she's been in a couple like sci-fi movies. No.
Yeah. That's exactly what Sasha thought at the end of the movie. She was like, 1, John, you can't pick another film for us to watch soon. And then 2, I feel so bad for Jennifer Lopez. Why is this the movie that they decided to pitch to her and that she accepted?
Yeah.
It's not good.
She was very good in Hustlers a few years ago, which was like an okay movie. It was kind of a Goodfellas ripoff, but she was very good in that. But yeah, she just seems to typically not choose her roles very carefully.
And I wonder if like anything that comes across her desk, it's like music related. She's like, no, I don't want to be that. I don't want that to be my only thing. But I'm like, well, you keep making terrible movies. It is your only thing.
Yeah. At this point, that was what I was thinking of the entire time I watched it, was just like, what are like more satisfying emotional scenes for her? Because there's so much here that like I said, her and Simu Liu, when she was a child, they played chess together. Why don't they play chess later in the movie? Why isn't there more of a logical discussion? Why does he have to be... The whole reason he was trying to kill humanity was to save humanity from itself by blowing up the atmosphere and killing every animal. And I was just like, I just don't understand. How is that... How does any of this make any fucking sense in the scope of their conversations? And also, for being like, there being an army of AI, there's only 2 actors who play AI robots. And the rest are just military dudes who show up and they don't talk anything about that. There's no world building. They literally are like, it's Simu Liu and it's Abraham Papula. And they're like both just the only robots in this fucking movie. They don't even talk about what their purpose is. Are they fucking house bots? Are they cleaning bots? Like what the fuck
they were
are
toasters.
They? Yeah, they toasters.
They put too much technology in our toasters.
Like they don't do any of that shit. They don't like... I just watched
butter.
Yeah. Your purpose is to pass butter. I just watched Blade Runner 2049, and watching this movie, I was just like, oh my God, this is like a shitty Blade Runner. This is the shittiest Blade Runner possible.
That's
pretty wild.
the thought that we're going to destroy ourselves with climate change is where he decides, and we never talk about that again.
Never at all.
Right? There's never like it's okay, humans will pull through or something.
They don't. They talk about how
nothing.
There's a whole confrontation at the end where Simu is just like, "You're the smartest human being I've ever known," and she's like, "You're the smartest AI." And they don't talk about how they could join forces to make the world better. Instead, he's just like, the only option is to fucking nuke humanity. It's just that's all that there is. There's no other better option. I watched Oppenheimer and I knew exactly what I needed to do. I took the wrong message away.
Yeah, I mean, at least the Matrix like spends 2 movies trying to answer their like, are humans viruses and always going to be terrible,
like
whatever. It doesn't make any
shit.
sense, but at least they talk about it.
Yeah, this one, an AI learns to swear and becomes her best friend, and the other AI is just an asshole always, and she never saves him. So fine, it's just dumb.
We must not allow an AI gap.
There cannot be an AI gap. Oh my God. AI animals will be bred and slaughtered. Anyways, Atlas would fucking absolutely refute. The number one movie on Netflix is number one by Netflix bumping up the fucking numbers, clearly. So yeah, there we go. And with that, I feel like we can call this. There's been a good number of rants in it. And I forget what we're recommending from you, Dixon.
I recommended Buck and the Preacher.
Buck and the Preacher.
Oh, yes.
It's good.
As
directed by
always.
Sidney Poitier and starring, what was
Poitier and Harry Belafonte.
Yeah.
Produced by the two of them.
I'm excited to go check that out.
As always on our movie podcast, Dixon watched a movie.
Yes, that is correct. Dixon did watch a movie. Ryan is refuting Madam Web. He's refuting it. He's refuting Madam Web, and I'm recommending Madam Web.
I'm asking Sony to take me on as like, I can just sit there and be like, oh, no, like, can you got to answer this, dude. Like, I'll just sit there and just tell them like, no, dude,
he wants
gotta
to
go
be
back on that one.
Their lore priest or whatever the fuck they have. Okay, so that's a refute for Madam Web. I'm recommending Madam Web because I've seen the garbage that is Atlas, and I'm refuting Atlas. So, sorry, Jennifer Lopez, it didn't work out this time. Please find a role that better suits you, and or ask for more when you're doing these other roles.
Maybe she did. Yeah, let's hope she like.
I can
got
only
another
hope
house.
that it helped you. Return to the block, Jenny. So yeah, with that, I have been your host, John Garcia. Joining me, as always, is
Ryan King. The web connects them all, John. That was the tagline, I guess.
Yeah,
it didn't though,
sure.
but
yeah, fuck it, whatever. And of course,
Michael Dixon. Oh my God, so much bullshit in this episode.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.